So the year Terrifier 2 came out, it was one of my favorite films of the year, but it actually took me quite a bit of time to getting around to seeing it, because I'm somebody who liked the first film enough for what it was trying to do. I was not infatuated with it or anything. I liked it as a proof of concept. I've already said my piece on that. Art the Clown, we finally get to meet him. It does some things great, but also some things I thought were done terribly in the form of a film. But I heard all of the rhetoric and the reviews surrounding number 2. People really liked it. They said it was so much better than number 1, bigger and more disgusting, and it just had my attention. But at the same time, I was pretty skeptical. It was a slasher film that was 2.5 hours long. I was not sold that this was a franchise for me, but eventually I caved into peer pressure. I buckled down, I went and saw this thing, and damn if I wasn't a little bit annoyed with myself. It took me so long to see because I absolutely loved it. I thought the film was a ton of fun. It was a blast. It improved on just about everything I wanted it to from the first film. So let's talk about it. I loved this film, Terrifier 2.
From Miles County, please welcome Art the Clown.
Right off the bat, the first thing you'll notice if you watch the first film and the second film back to back is how different they are in tone, at least to me. Because when I watched the first film, I always thought it was brutal just for the sake of showcasing practical effects, Art the Clown. And it still is the same thing in number 2. Don't get me wrong, the kills are disgusting, practical effects top notch, but it feels like it's a lot more creative for how his antics are and driving the plot along. For the first film, it was just brutal because there was nothing else to the movie. There was no plot. So I really liked the format of the second movie a lot more. I saw an interview somewhere, I don't remember where it was, with Damien Leone, where he's talking about how some of this movie kind of feels like it was Dream Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street. That was some of the inspiration. And it really does feel like that. The second movie feels a lot more schlocky, like it's having a lot more creativity with the plot. Art the Clown's antics are really built upon. So for that reason, I think the movie's a lot more fun than the first film, if you can use that word once again. When I got done watching this for the first time, I felt like I just got done watching Damien Leone's magnum opus of a film, kind of like Tim Burton's Beetlejuice. You watch this, it feels like this is the film he will always be remembered for, because the steep upgrade from number 1, if he didn't do that and we just got another version of number 1, I don't think anybody's talking about this franchise, at least me, because he made Art the Clown a household name. A lot of people are watching this type of film, this grindhouse B horror film, that they would never be interested in because of how creative number 2 is, how he drives the plot in this one, how there's some lore and explanation as I'll get into. But that's really what makes this movie stand out and why I think this is going to be the work he is remembered for. It is such a steep upgrade in just about every way. I kind of can't stop gloating about it. I know a lot of people like number 1 as well. Not even in the same ballpark for me. I think this movie is a monumental upgrade in just about every way over the first film. I just used the word a minute ago, but plot and lore is also another big difference between number 2 and number 1. First movie, that was one of my major gripes. Really has no purpose to it at all besides watching Art the Clown going around killing people in this apartment building. Number 2 has a lot more lore, has a story-driven plot to what's going on in this town, and you get to get a little bit more of a fleshed out world of Miles County. The world building is a lot better in my opinion. Feels like it's Halloween time permanently there. You're watching this clown who fits right into the town. It's just a world I want to spend a lot of time in and watch movies in. In Terrifier 2, we also meet our final girl, Sienna, in this, and you get to spend time with her family and her brother and get to know these characters. Huge monumental difference from number 1, because in number 1, we don't really have any centric character besides Art. We don't know anything about these people. We don't care about them. There's no stakes whatsoever. In number 2, we get to know Sienna as our final girl. She is a phenomenal character. I love her character. Played by LaVera. She is going to be a household name in horror, I feel. Absolutely awesome in this role. But you meet her and her brother, these innocent and likable characters you're going to spend time with. And I said in my review for the first one, where this franchise differs is in original horror films, you're always rooting for the victim to get away. You don't want the killer to kill them. Unless maybe you're demented, you're rooting for the killer. I'm not going to judge. But that's how traditional horror films work. But in the Terrifier franchise, you don't want Art the Clown to get his victims because he's going to brutally dismember his victims. So when you have characters in this film, such as Sienna and her family, you have characters to root for that are likable. You don't want Art the Clown to get his hands on. That is a major difference, in my opinion, between the first film where you have nobody to root for. It makes the stakes feel a lot more heightened. It makes the plot feel a lot more important. And for that reason, it just makes just about everything elevated. That's how this story is told, though. You follow Sienna and her brother, and Art the Clown's out for blood on Halloween again. And when this film started off, I was still skeptical because the opening scene starts and it felt exactly like number 1. When I was watching it, I was like, dear God, please no, not 2.5 hours of this again. We already did this in number 1. But shortly after that, you meet Sienna, you meet her family. Some of the music choices really got me into this world. And it was a certain scene in particular that completely won me over in this film, and it's not too far into the film, the Clown Cafe. If you've seen the movie, you know the scene. I thought the scene was a fucking blast. I was smiling ear to ear, grinning, laughing. I laughed about a dozen or so times in this movie, so for how over the top it is, how ridiculous it is, I thought this movie was just a ton of fun, even though you're watching people getting bludgeoned. And as I said a minute ago, this is a 2.5-hour movie, but it doesn't feel like it, at least not to me. I thought this world, this movie, compared to the first film, intoxicating. It's this weird, demented fever dream you're spending in Miles County. It's something unlike anything else we get nowadays. That's why I think it's so infatuating to a lot of fans. Over-the-top gore, ridiculous story. I love the camera work in this, the old-school grindhouse look. Something very unique that I think makes this franchise stand out. A breath of fresh air for horror fans. We don't get too much of that anymore. It's always elevated horror. It's always this trauma and stress and metaphors. This movie doesn't give a fuck. It's just people getting murdered. Art the Clown batshit insane. Some absolutely great set pieces. Some fun. For that reason, I love this around Halloween time. And for fans of the genre who are fans of B-horror films, grindhouse films, you love your kills, this movie will not disappoint in that category either, because much like the first film, over-the-top violence, the practical effects are great, and one scene in particular steals the show for that, the bedroom scene. If you know, you know. So I find number 2 to have just a little bit of everything for just about everybody who was a fan of the first one. If you like the first one, I don't see how you couldn't love the second film. It's got great violence, it's got great practical effects, it's got a much better story and plot driven by Sienna and Art the Clown. Just does everything I think I wanted the first film to do. This was one of my favorite films of the year for a reason, and when I saw it, I could not stop thinking about it. This is a film I'm probably going to rewatch annually. I think it's fucking awesome. So have any of you guys seen Terrifier 2? Have you guys seen Terrifier 1? How do you guys think they compare? You excited for Terrifier 3? Let me know it all down below. As always, if you haven't subscribed, join me down below, and I'm going to put a link to all my Terrifier stuff up here. You want to watch the series? That's all I got in this video. Take care, guys. Peace.